Okay friends, it's time to get started on replacing our inside door handle. To do this, we're going to have to remove the door panel. To start taking the door panel off, we're going to make our way right over to the mirror switch. To remove the mirror switch, I'm going to use a plastic trim tool so I don't damage the paneling here. You can also carefully use a pocket screwdriver if you can't get in between the two areas. Now, as I press down in the center here, there's going to be a tab located behind this area, holding it in. So I'm just going to carefully press it down towards the switch and gently twist. While I start pulling it away, there's also another tab on this side, closer to the window. Now for this one, generally all I do is I carefully put my finger in here and then I'll run mine down along the side. As I start putting my trim tool in along the side here, I'm pressing on that tab and I can carefully pull this out and away from the door panel. Now once you pull it out of there, you're going to want to have a look at the back side. You're going to find that you have a wiring harness that leads to the switch. On one side, you're going to have a locking tab. To remove that, you can either use your trim tool or that small pocket screwdriver. I'll carefully get in between the wiring harness and the switch itself, gently pry just far enough to pull it out. Now once I have it out of there, I always like to give electrical components a quick inspection. If you see any funny colors inside where the connector is, generally that's corrosion and it would need to be dealt with. Ours looks fine, so I'll go ahead and set this aside. I'll carefully push this inside the door panel, and now we can move along to where the window switches are located. To remove the window switch, I'm going to carefully get underneath this area right here with my plastic trim tool. I can feel that there's a little ridge that I can carefully get in between. I'm going to gently pry and start pulling this up a little bit as I do. Let's have a look from the back side. Now on the back side, you can see that you have 3 electrical connectors. We're going to start disconnecting these. For the green, you can see that there's a tab right here along this area. I'm going to use my pocket screwdriver and I'm going to carefully try pressing on this. You can also try to use your fingers or even some pliers if for some reason your fingers aren't strong enough. Always give it that close inspection. Looks fine. We'll continue on to the blue in the center here. There's a tab right along the side. We'll go ahead and press on that and gently pull this out as well. This one's a little bit harder to get to. It's down along the side right here. Just going to carefully get in between here. Gently pry, lift it up and out. Okay, now I have everything disconnected. I'll have a look at the back side of my switch to make sure it looks fine and set it aside. Now let's move along to this area. Behind your black handle, you're going to find a rectangular panel. I'm going to carefully use a pocket screwdriver, get in between this area without damaging anything, and gently pry. We'll go ahead and pull it right off of there, and you can have a look at the back side. There's going to be 4 locking tabs that hold it in place. Make sure they're still good and set that aside. Now behind that panel, you're going to find that you have 2 7mm headed bolts. We're going to remove the pair. There's one of our screws. Do the same to the other. Now that we have those 2 screws off, let's move along to this area. This is the inside door handle. We want to carefully remove the trim panel that goes behind the handle. I'll use my pocket screwdriver, gently get in between this area without damaging the door panel in any way. I'm going to gently pry as I make my way around until it pops free. Once you have it broken free, go ahead and pull on that handle and remove this from the door panel. We'll give it a quick inspection and set it aside. Now let's move down along the bottom of the door panel. You're going to find 2 5.5mm mounting screws. Now we can move along to removing the door panel from the door. To do this, I'm going to use a plastic trim tool. And essentially, I want to get in between the panel and the door itself and gently start prying it away. Now, behind the door panel, you're going to have several clips that look like this. It's common for them to pop out of place, and that's okay, because once we have it apart, we can carefully put them all back into place. Now, once you have it mostly broken free, we're going to carefully grab onto the door panel and we're going to gently lift it up. Just be very careful for any pinch points. I don't want you to hurt your fingers in any way. There's our door panel. Go ahead and set that aside. All right, with the door panel out of the way, we have a nice clear view of our inside door handle. We're going to carefully start removing some of the insulation that's located around it. Now what I want to do is I'm going to make my way down along here, and there's going to be some sticky tape that I'm going to carefully start pulling away. I want to reuse it, so I don't want to tear it into a whole bunch of pieces. Now once I have that pulled away, I'm going to continue on to the foam insulator. Now behind all that, you're going to find that you have two Phillips head screws. There's one down in the lower corner and one directly diagonal across from it. Let's remove the pair. Let's grab onto that door handle. We're going to give it a little wiggle and start separating it from the door itself. Now, as we start pulling this away from the door, keep in mind that you will have a rod that leads to the back of this that we will have to disconnect. So, of course, it won't just fall right out of there. You want to pay attention to the way that the rod comes up, curves two ways here. All we want to do is gently pull the handle away far enough that we can take this and gently twist the handle as needed to remove it. There it is, friends. Now I'm going to go ahead and hold onto the rod like this. We're going to take the inside door handle and hold it in the down position, just like this. We'll slide it on here. As it goes on, we're going to bring it right down, and it should look like this by the time we get it latched in. There we are. Now we have this area right here that we want to pay attention to. So what I want to do is I'm just going to put it inside the door. Go ahead and get it lined up, slide it in up against the door as far as possible, and then lock it in. Give it a little wiggle to make sure it's semi-secured, and then we'll continue on with each of our mounting screws. One of those mounting screws goes up inside the top corner here. We'll go ahead and put that in. I'm going to leave that loose until I continue on with the other one. Once they're both started, snug them up. Now I'm going to tuck this inside here. For good measure, I'll just go ahead and remove whatever foam's left on here. Now we can set this down into that position. At this point, we're getting ready to go ahead and put the door panel back on. But while we were removing it, I had mentioned that there are a whole bunch of push tabs that could potentially get stuck in the door or even fall out. Either way, if there's some inside the door, you need to use a trim tool and go ahead and remove them. Once you have all of them out, we'll go ahead and place them into the door panel before we install the door panel on the door. Once you have all of the push clips out of the door, continue on by inserting them into the door panel. Basically, you just slide them right in through the slot. This gray wire here with the gray connector is the one that goes up to the mirror switch. Let's take that and put it up and through that hole, all the way up high. Now we'll continue on. As we bring this over, I'm going to take the other 3 connectors, the blue, gray, and green, and slide them up through the hole where the window switches need to be. Now as I bring this over closer to the door, I want you to pay attention to the area where my fingers are here. There's a lip. Now that lip actually needs to sit up and over the lip that's on the door right here. While we're talking about this area up along here, you also have your door lock. It's going to be easiest to put your door panel on with the lock in the upright position or unlocked position. We're going to have to line that up with the corresponding hole on the door panel. I'll bring it up nice and high, line up that door lock, slide it through the hole. As I start bringing it down, I'm pressing this towards the door and I'm trying to line up the lip with the top lip of the door. Now, once you have that lined up, we're going to continue on by trying to take a peek inside in between the door panel and the door itself. You want to find all those push pins and make sure they line up with the corresponding holes on the door. Once you feel as though you have them lined up, go ahead and press this right in so it's bottomed out against the door itself. Double check all the way around. If it feels like it's lifted away, more than likely one of those pins isn't lined up properly. You want to make sure you fix that. This feels fine. Let's continue on with the mirror switch. Have a look at the back side. You can see that you have this area that protrudes out a little bit. Looking at the wiring itself, you'll find the area that slides right into it. Line it up, latch it in. Listen for a click. I always give things a tug. Yep, that feels good. Now we're just going to go ahead and slide this in. There's 2 locking tabs, one along this area that goes along the side over here, and one up along the top. When I press, I always press along the base and never on the switch itself. Why break it? Make sure it feels as though it's secure and it's not going to move around inside that door panel on you. Now it's time to reattach the window switch here. Now we're going to take this and we're going to start putting it in. You can see that I have a couple push tabs here that need to line up with their corresponding holes on the door itself. Make sure that's nice and secure. Now we can put this on here. Looking at the back, you can see that you have some locking tabs. Those are just going to slide right in behind the panel as you press it in. We'll take this, we're going to pull on that inside door handle. Slide it right on through that square hole. We'll get it lined up with the area that it needs to be in and gently press it in. Let's put in our 2 mounting screws along here. Use my 7mm to get those in there. Make sure it's nice and tight. Now we'll use our 5.5mm to put in our lower mounting bolts. Time for our last plastic panel here. Looking at the back, you can find the locking tabs and the alignment tabs. Make sure everything lines up and carefully press it in. Now, before we go ahead and shut the door, we want to make sure that we test the door handle to make sure it functions properly. To do that, we're going to come right over to the latch. I'll use a large Phillips head screwdriver. You can also use a rod of some sort. And I'm going to carefully put it right inside the latch, and I'm going to gently pull it towards me. Now, at this point, the screwdriver is acting as if it's the striker on the body of the vehicle, and the door thinks that it's in the latched position. Now I'm going to try to hold pressure on it in this direction. I'm also going to go ahead and pull on that door handle and make sure that it opens. While you're doing this, it's a good idea to just make sure that the door is in the unlocked position. It only makes sense. Now, as you can see, it released it for me. I'll go ahead and try it one more time. Latch it in, it's holding. Pull on that handle and it releases. At this point, we know that it works fine.